English Easy Podcast.
Hello, learners. Welcome back to English Easy Podcast, your partner to learning English.
Yeah, we are so glad you're tuning in today.
Definitely. So I want you to just, imagine a scenario for a second. You are sitting in this sleek, glass-walled meeting room.
Or, maybe you are just staring at a grid of faces on a super high-stakes video call, right?
Exactly. And suddenly, the topic shifts to your project.
Yeah.
And, the work inside and out. You understand all the data, you have the ideas, and you know exactly how to fix the quarterly revenue projections.
But then the spotlight turns to you.
Right. And your mind just goes totally, completely blank. Your heart starts pounding against your ribs, your palms are sweating.
I know that feeling so well.
Yeah. And there's this loud, intrusive voice inside your head screaming, don't speak. You are going to use the wrong verb tense and completely embarrass yourself.
It's awful. And, that physical reaction is actually incredibly common, especially when you're operating in a second language for your career.
Really? Because, in the moment, it just feels like a massive personal failing.
Oh, absolutely it does. But what we're actually looking at is a biological phenomenon. It's not just you.
Wow. Okay. Tell me more about that.
Well, when you are put on the spot, your brain is it's simultaneously trying to translate complex professional concepts into English while also processing the social pressure of 10 colleagues just staring at you.
Which is a lot to handle all at once.
Exactly. That cognitive overload triggers a literal fight or flight response. So your amygdala actually perceives the presentation the exact same way it perceives a physical threat.
Wait, really? Like a lion chasing you?
Yeah, literally. It floods your system with adrenaline and effectively, shuts down the language processing center of your brain.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So it is not that you forgot the English language. It's that your brain's security system basically locks the doors to your vocabulary vault.
That is a perfect way to put it, yeah.
So our mission in today's deep dive is to basically hand you the keys to unlock those doors.
Right, because if you are a professional, navigating your first few years in an international career, this is huge.
Or even if you're an intermediate learner aiming for a promotion that requires communicating with global teams, we are tackling the exact strategies you need to build true functional confidence.
Yeah, we are going to look at how to bypass that panic response, overcome the fear of making mistakes in the office, and really turn that hesitation into actionable courage.
I love that, actionable courage.
Wow.
But to do that, we first have to dismantle a massive illusion about what confidence actually looks like in the workplace.
Of the corporate myth, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The traditional myth suggests that the confident person is, the loudest one in the room, the one with a flawless native-level vocabulary who never, ever drops a syllable.
Which is just not true. True confidence is simply the underlying belief that you can handle a given situation.
Right.
It is the willingness to raise your hand and share a thought while being completely at peace with the fact that you might actually mispronounce a difficult financial term.
Yeah. I always used to hear confidence described as a muscle you have to flex. But honestly, I think a much better analogy from our sources is a noise-canceling filter.
Ooh. A noise-canceling filter. I like that. Break that down for me.
Well, your brain is constantly generating static, right? Fear of judgment, comparison to that one incredibly fluent colleague across the table.
Well, the one who always sounds perfect.
Exactly. We all know one. Or, memories of a time someone laughed at your accent. So confidence isn't about overpowering that static with sheer force.
Right. That sounds exhausting.
It is. It is really about developing a psychological filter that tunes out the inner critic so your language processor can just, do its job.
That filter analogy perfectly explains the barriers we face. Because when the filter fails, the static just takes over.
Right. The static gets too loud.
Yeah. Take the fear of judgment, for example. In an office setting, you might worry that your colleagues will think you are less intelligent simply because your English isn't perfect.
Which is such a common fear.
It is. And that fear is usually compounded by past experiences. If a manager sharply corrected your grammar, say 3 years ago, your brain filed that memory away as a survival threat.
Wow, just from one correction.
Yeah. So every time you open your mouth in a meeting now, your brain flags that old memory, warning you to just stay quiet to avoid being heard again.
Which means we are basically fighting ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
We are letting a minor correction from 3 years ago dictate our career trajectory today.
Exactly. It's wild when you think about it.
So identifying those specific barriers, like the fear of judgment, the comparison trap, the past trauma, that is step one.
Right.
But step two is actively reprogramming the mindset to rebuild that noise-canceling filter. And I want to dig into the mechanics of the growth versus fixed mindset here, because honestly, it goes far beyond just being a corporate buzzword.
Oh, absolutely. The mechanism behind it relies on something called the reticular activating system, or the RAS, which is essentially the brain's data filter.
Okay, the RAS, how does that work?
Well, at any given second, there is way too much sensory information in a room for your brain to process.
Right, like the hum of the AC, people typing, all of it.
Exactly. The RAS decides what gets your attention based on what you already believe is important.
It's okay, I'm following.
So if you walk into a meeting with a fixed mindset, harboring this core belief that your English is terrible, your RAS will actively scan the room for proof to validate that belief.
Wow, so you're literally looking for reasons to fail.
Yeah, you will notice the one person checking their watch or furrowing their brow, and your brain will immediately say, see, we are failing.
Okay, but let me push back on this for a second, because applying a growth mindset in a calm, sterile environment is super easy.
Sure.
But how do you functionally apply this when you have just, completely bombed a massive project update?
Right, when the stakes are high.
Yeah, you stumbled over your words, you forgot the key financial vocabulary, your face is burning. In that visceral moment of embarrassment, you cannot just magically think growth and suddenly feel better.
No, you really can't, and you shouldn't try to. The physical flush of embarrassment is unavoidable, and honestly, trying to suppress it usually makes it worse.
So what did you do then?
The reprogramming actually happens in the aftermath of that physical reaction. You don't ignore the failure, you change the coding of how your brain files the event.
Okay, change the coding. What does that look like practically?
Well, instead of letting your internal narrative spiral into a total character assassination like, I am a terrible professional, I shouldn't be here, you deploy targeted affirmations and reframing techniques.
Oh, I see.
You analyze the event objectively. You tell yourself, okay, I struggled with the financial jargon today, but my overall structure was clear, and I am improving my delivery.
So you are basically turning a really painful emotional experience into a sterile, positive evaluation metric.
Exactly.
It is just data. The failure highlights the exact 5 vocabulary words you need to study tomorrow morning, rather than serving as like an indictment of your worth as an employee.
Yes. That shift from emotional judgment to data collection is the absolute essence of a growth mindset.
That is so powerful.
And it is reinforced by daily affirmations, like just stating out loud, every mistake I make is actively building my fluency. That begins to actually rewrite the instructions you give to your reticular activating system.
So eventually, your brain stops looking for the colleague, checking their watch, and starts noticing the colleague who is actually nodding along with your ideas.
You got it. It changes your literal perception of the room.
Okay, so mindset is the foundation, right? But sitting in your home office thinking positive thoughts will not make you fluent.
No, definitely not.
The application of confidence requires physical action. And the fascinating part here is that this action starts before you even speak.
This is one of my favorite parts.
Right, like your body language actually dictates your internal mental state.
The connection between posture and psychology is profound. If you shrink into your chair, round your shoulders, look down in your notebook, you are physically signaling submission and fear to your nervous system.
You're telling your body to be afraid.
Exactly. But by consciously adjusting your posture, sitting up straight, keeping your chest open, and making steady eye contact, you are sending a biological signal to your brain that you are safe and in control.
And that brings us to one of the most vital strategies for intermediate learners operating in these high-stakes environments, which is the power of simplicity.
Oh, yes. Less is more.
Because there is this overwhelming temptation to use really complex academic English to prove your intelligence, right?
Of course, you want to sound smart.
But when you are nervous, trying to construct a massive multi-clause sentence in your head usually just leads to panic and dead silence.
It really does. Calm simplicity projects far more authority than panicked complexity.
I love that phrase, calm simplicity.
Let's make this tangible, actually. Let's look at a common workplace scenario. So, say you were in a team project discussion, and the manager points out a major delay in the timeline and asks the room for solutions.
Okay, so the fearful version of you might try to construct something ridiculous in your head, like, given the unforeseen logistical bottlenecks regarding the quarterly deliverables, I hypothesize that an extension of the temporal parameters is necessitated.
Oh, wow. That is a mouthful.
Right. And halfway through that thought, you lose the grammar, you panic, and you just say absolutely nothing.
Which helps no one. But the confident version of you handles it completely differently.
Exactly.
You take a deliberate breath to settle your nervous system.
Mhm.
You sit up, you make eye contact with the manager, and you prioritize clarity over complexity.
So what do you say instead?
You just say, I suggest we extend the deadline by 2 days. This gives us time to ensure the quality is right.
Boom. Short, punchy, and literally impossible to misunderstand.
Exactly. You maintain your professional authority simply by slowing down and keeping it simple.
You know, there is a brilliant case study from our sources that illustrates this exact transition. Let's talk about the story of this engineer named Ahmed.
Oh, Ahmed's story is fantastic.
Yeah. So he possessed incredible technical knowledge, but he harbored this deep, deep insecurity about his accent and his intermediate grammar.
A very common struggle.
Right. He was convinced that if he didn't sound exactly like a native speaker, his colleagues would completely dismiss his engineering expertise.
But Ahmed's silence wasn't due to a lack of knowledge, right? It was due to that faulty psychological filter we talked about.
Exactly.
So he started fixing it by decoupling his intellectual worth from his language fluency.
Which is a massive mental shift.
It is. He realized his real value was his engineering insight, and English was just the delivery vehicle.
Just the vehicle. I like that.
And to improve the vehicle, he didn't attempt to overhaul his entire personality overnight. He started with just a 5-minute daily habit.
Just 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes of shadowing podcasts, just repeating phrases out loud to train his vocal cords and get used to the sounds.
And then he translated that into the office through what we call micro action.
Right, small steps.
He didn't volunteer to lead a massive keynote presentation on day one. His first small risk was simply stating, I agree with that point, during a meeting.
Just 5 words.
Yep. And the next week, he asked one clarifying question. And by the end of a few months, those compounded microactions had built enough evidence in his brain to prove that speaking up was safe.
And didn't he eventually end up leading the weekly technical reviews?
He did. From staying totally silent to leading the reviews.
That trajectory is a perfect example of why tracking your progress is basically non-negotiable.
Yeah. How do you recommend doing that?
Building a wins journal is highly recommended. At the end of every single workday, write down just one small victory.
Like what? Give me an example.
Like, today I greeted the new client in English, or today I used a new financial term correctly. When you force your brain to document these moments, you really accelerate that reprogramming process.
We do have to acknowledge, though, that individual resilience can only take you so far if you are planted in toxic soil.
Oh, that is so true. Environment is everything.
Yet your environment plays a massive role in whether your confidence actually takes root or if it just dies. We are heavily influenced by the concept that we are, the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with.
Absolutely. I mean, if you are surrounded by colleagues who mock people for trying new things, or who complain endlessly about the company, or who just hyperfixate on minor errors,
your noise-canceling filter will eventually short-circuit.
It will. The cognitive load of defending yourself against a negative environment, it leaves zero energy for language acquisition.
Which means you have to cultivate a supportive ecosystem.
Yes.
That means actively seeking out colleagues who are also focused on growth, or finding an online community of international professionals.
Because when you immerse yourself in an environment where the struggle is normalized, where, seeing someone search for a word is met with patience rather than judgment, your brain finally realizes that it is safe to take off the armor and just practice.
Exactly. And honestly, curtailing negative inputs is equally important here.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Limiting exposure to people who drain your confidence is huge.
Or even curating your social media feeds to remove toxic, anxiety-inducing content. It protects the mental bandwidth you need to focus on your professional development.
Totally agree.
Now, theory is excellent, but application is what actually moves the needle. So we're going to transition into a practical shadowing drill right now to help you build that muscle memory.
Yes, because in language acquisition, shadowing isn't just about hearing a word. It is about physically training your jaw, your tongue, and your vocal cords to navigate the specific sounds of professional English.
So here is how this will work. We will provide a piece of essential professional vocabulary, explain its context, and then leave a short pause.
We want you to treat this as a serious tactical exercise. When I pause, you need to actually repeat the word out loud to build your physical fluency.
Right. We won't interrupt the flow with cheerleading. We're just going to focus on the mechanics of the words. Let's begin.
Colleague, a person you work with in a professional capacity. Context. I need to review these quarterly reports with my colleagues.
Take a second and say it out loud. Colleague.
Embarrass. To cause someone to feel self-conscious or uncomfortable. Context. Do not let the fear of a mistake embarrass you during the presentation.
Your turn. Embarrass.
Mindset. The established set of attitudes held by someone. Context. Approaching this project with a growth mindset will change the outcome.
Say it with us. Mindset.
Affirmation. A statement of truth used to offer emotional support or encouragement. Context. She used a daily affirmation to prepare for the high-stakes negotiation.
Go ahead. Affirmation.
Struggle. To make forceful efforts to get free of restraint. Context. The initial struggle with the new financial software ultimately improved our efficiency.
Out loud now. Struggle.
Barrier. A circumstance or obstacle that keeps people or things apart. Context. A lack of communication is the biggest barrier to our team's success.
Your turn. Barrier.
Lift up. To elevate someone's mood or confidence. Context. A strong manager will always lift up their team after a difficult quarter.
Last one. Lift up.
Great job. Engaging in that kind of deliberate practice, even for just a few minutes, is exactly the kind of micro-action that builds long-term fluency.
It really is. It is proof to yourself that you are willing to do the unseen work required to thrive in a global career.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, it is crucial to institute a practice of weekly self-reflection.
Yeah, take a moment right now to genuinely evaluate your trajectory over the last few days.
Ask yourself, did you navigate a complex email thread? Did you understand a difficult concept in this discussion today?
Acknowledge those data points. They are the actual building blocks of your professional persona.
And to ensure that momentum doesn't stop when this audio ends, we are issuing a specific daily challenge.
Oh, I love this part.
Tomorrow at the office, you need to take one small, confident action that pushes slightly past your comfort zone.
Just one small thing.
Yep. It could be offering a one-sentence opinion on a project timeline. It could be initiating small talk with the manager in the elevator.
And the outcome doesn't even matter, right? The victory is entirely in the willingness to execute the action despite the presence of fear.
Exactly. That requirement for action brings us to a fundamental shift in how we must view the timeline of success.
And it is the thought I want to leave you with today. We constantly tell ourselves that we will speak up when we feel confident.
We all do it.
We wait for this magical day when we will wake up with a flawless vocabulary and zero anxiety. But the mechanics of the human brain dictate that progress always, inevitably, comes before confidence.
Right, the progress has to come first.
You will never feel 100% ready before you take the leap. Confidence is not the prerequisite for speaking up. It is the reward you earn after you have spoken up, made a mistake, and realized you survived.
That is so true.
The waiting is the barrier. The action is the breakthrough. So I want you to think about this. What career-defining opportunity, what brilliant insight, or what vital connection are you currently sacrificing simply because you are waiting to feel ready?
The only way to find out what happens when you stop waiting is to open your mouth and just start speaking.
Your international career is waiting on the other side of that hesitation. Keep taking those small risks, keep documenting your wins, and keep showing up. Until next time.